Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. My name is Eric Kirby. I'm the Executive Director of Completion and Student Success. And with me is Ryan Bailey and Heather Garcia.
Good morning. I'm Ryan Bailey, a senior communications student here at SUU with plans to take the MPA afterwards. And I work with Eric in accomplishing retention campaigns and working with our group of peer mentors called ACES.
This mic. I'm Heather Garcia. I'm graduating this May, thank goodness, in a theater arts degree, and I am also continuing my education here in the master's program.
Okay, so today what we want to talk about is one student at a time, and this was basically a year-long experiment, if you will, on how shifting the focus to focus in on individuals might be able to improve retention and graduation rates here at SUU. To begin with, we first need to understand what I mean by retention. Retention, as far as all purposes are considered for USHE and IPEDS, factors in freshmen that come in the door. Third week, we take a snapshot of them, and then we take a snapshot of them their sophomore year to see if they're still back in their seats. What we found with regards to retention is that really over the past 5 years, prior to this last year, we had a stagnant or declining retention rate for 5 years along with the declining graduation rate. And so we decided to look at a few things and figure out, is there anything we can do to change? Some of the big items that we found are, one, there wasn't really a smooth transition between what the PAs were doing in the admissions side and orientation, not a seamless handoff. Second, we are kind of doing a one-size-fits-all with orientation, and we'll talk about why that needed to shift based on the incoming generation. We weren't changing to meet the needs of Generation Z and not sure really why students left. More importantly, which students were we actually losing? So that required a significant look, basically a year long, over the data and what that was telling us.
Our first goal was to find out why these students were leaving. We knew they were going, but had no idea why. We could guess and throw out any manner of reason. So our staff went to work. We made hundreds and hundreds of phone calls to figure out and found out that the main reasons were, one, financial reasons. They couldn't pay, they didn't know how to pay, or unwilling to take on debt. Number two was personal or other basic needs. But as you can see, there's a lot of different reasons. But for the first time, we had some data of why they were leaving.
Yeah, and with that, so we know why they're leaving. We're wondering who's leaving. And it's noted that 1 in 3 freshmen are intended to and are leaving SU after their first year, not continuing to their second year. And we'll talk a little bit more about the T-Bird Takeoff Questionnaire, but students were identifying, even before stepping foot on campus, that they intend to transfer after their first year of college. So that's a huge red flag to us, and we kind of worked our program around that, helping the first year experience and our campaigns. And we'll talk more about Thunder U, but we did notice with the Thunder U Welcome program that 5% of those students had a higher chance of retaining.
So continuing looking in the data, some of the other things that surprised us is that females actually retained at a 6% higher rate here at SUU than males over 10 years. We recognize that certain populations historically retain at higher rates. This is Pacific Islanders, Asians, and Hispanics, all retaining at higher rates than Caucasians. We learned that in-state students retain at lower rates than out-of-state students, except for Nevada. Nevada is the exception. They retain at lower rates than in-state Utah. We also recognize that there's a 4 to 6% decrease in students from northern Utah versus those in the 5-county area. Students with an index score of 110 or below had a below average retention rate, along with students with a 3.5 GPA coming in retained at lower rates here at SUU. And that students that live on campus retain at 5 to 7% higher than those who live off campus their first year.
So after we figured out why they were leaving and who they were, we wanted to understand this incoming generation and be able to adapt. So we looked at this Generation Z, and for your information, Generation Z comprises students that were born between 1994 and about 2009 to 2010. So a lot of our high school and now incoming students, some of you might even be a part of Generation Z. Right now, they make up about 25% of the U.S. population, and by 2020, they'll be over a third of the United States population.
Yeah, so we can all know and we observe that Generation Z is very adept to their social media platforms. They are multi-connected and they can multitask through different platforms. And it says 81% of Generation Z is on social media. So knowing that, we wanted to take our focus instead of maybe blasting information to the students through emails or flyers, maybe take it to their choice of how they digest information. And something that I took away that was like kind of a new thing to me, so we think that these students are so connected to their mobile device that they probably don't talk to their parents, right? Well, we found that compared to millennials, they're actually very concerned about their parents' decision, and they're their top role models. An experience last night that we just had was at an advising event. A student came in, and we were helping them in the resident halls, and we said, "Hey, you ready for registration?" And he said, "Well, kind of. I kind of know what I want." "Well, we're right here. Let us help you." "Well, I got to call my parents, my family, and talk over my classes with them." And to me, I don't even think my parents know what I'm graduating with in this May, let alone what classes I'm taking. But for this student, it was a big concern that he had a conference call with his family to make sure that they knew what classes they were in. So we kind of joke about the helicopter parent, but it's something relevant, and we want to kind of grab hold of that and support their decision with their parents.
So with that, you'll see some of the changes that we made. We became very intentional as far as reaching out to the parents, as you'll see here in a bit. But Gen Z wants flexibility. They want to be treated like adults. More importantly, this is probably one of the most debt-adverse generations that we'll see because they're impacted by the Great Recession. They were 8, 9, 10 years old when their parents were losing their homes, their mortgages, their jobs during the Great Recession. So this generation does not want to go into debt. So knowing these factors, we began to change a lot of what we were doing here at SUU.
So to maintain or to build that more one-on-one thing, we took this information, as Kirby stated. We knew that they wanted to be connected with their parents, so parent-family service was adapted and created. We know that they wanted flexibility and be able to pick and choose, so we revamped orientation and first-year experience, created it from more than just a summer experience to a whole year-long thing where they could pick and be a part of what they wanted to be. We teamed up with other offices. Student Affairs as a whole took a big step in making this experience better. Offices like the Vet Center, the CDI, Student Support Services all made a bigger impact to make a one-on-one impact. I use the word that a lot, I'm sorry. But built around this idea of being TAVI or putting the student first.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that we had seen success with is our ACES program, our Assistant Coaches for Excellence and Success, which is a lot of students here in the room with us today. These are peer mentors who oversee a cohort of students, about 100 to 150 incoming first-year students, and then kind of mentor them through their first year through connecting them with resources, calling campaigns. We talked a little bit about that. Hey, tomorrow's registration, are you ready? Carrying these signs. I know we saw one come in earlier today. If Generation Z is not really adaptable to come to you for information, we're going to them and through these peer mentors.
Okay, so what does this look like, knowing all this information? Step one is PAs go out and they kick butt and they recruit great students and bring them to SUU. As soon as that student pays their enrollment deposit, that transfers over to Student Affairs, to our side of the house. And they get an automated email within 24 hours of paying their enrollment deposit from me, outlining the very next steps that they have to complete. One of the first things they need to do is fill out the T-Bird Takeoff Questionnaire, the TTQ, and Ryan will explain that here in a little bit.
Yeah, this questionnaire was adapted and sent to every incoming student. It takes about 15 minutes to fill out, and it gives us valuable information to help with two main things. One, to serve our students better. We'll talk about exactly how that happens. And then number two, it helps our advisors and our ACEs create custom schedules for each incoming student based off their needs and preferences.
So here are kind of the statements that we're seeing through this T-Bird Takeoff Questionnaire. We're knowing a little bit about students before they actually step foot on campus. My man Mason here, paying for it all. He's concerned about paying for college. In our old model, we would go through a checklist. Okay, first communication is this, 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 and this. But now knowing that, the ACEs are now working on, okay, we see that a red flag is paying for college. Our first thing is, hey, let's get you connected with financial aid. Moving on to the next slide, we have a couple more quotes, and some of these are kind of heartfelt, and it makes you go, oh, I just want to help this student, right? And finally, this one quote, I'm nervous about being an outcast as I prepare for college. It scares me because it's a new place, a new start, and it's hard to start by myself and not make any friends, so I just hope to make some friends. This student would never tell you this to your face, but because the Generation Z is so quick to express their emotions through an online platform, we know that this student needs help right out of the gate. Get them connected with an ACE, get them connected on, SUSA, whatever it is. We need this student to make sure they're stepping out on the right foot.
Okay, then right after they fill out the TTQ, the ACEs begin to reach out to them with this strategic communication based on what that student needs. This will usually happen within 72 hours of that student pay their enrollment deposit, so it's been going on really since February. So they're getting that concierge service right off the bat before they even start in August. And as part of that outreach, we talked about the parents are so important in decision making. Debbie Staples, our coordinator of Parent Family Services, she reaches out to the parents after the enrollment deposit is paid, welcoming them to SUU and answering their questions because, lo and behold, they usually have more questions than the student does. So we're taking care of both ends.
After this outreach has happened, each incoming student is mailed one of these mailers, as you can see. That includes a welcome letter at SUU, a bio about who their advisor is, who their ACE is, and all the pertinent information that they need to know for their summer orientation and preparing for Thunder U, which we'll talk about.
Awesome. And then once the student has filled out that questionnaire that we talked about, received the mailer, they're then hand registered by SSAs, our student success advisors, and our ACEs to make sure if they noted that math is an anxiety for them, that we're going to get them maybe in a smaller math class through student support services if we can. It's kind of this not one size fits all, very individualized, and then we send it back to the student and the ACE works with them and says, is this looking okay for your needs, and where can we go from here?
Okay, then over the summer, the ACEs begin to reach out. They'll have a series of communications, walking through a summer checklist with each student, get them in Facebook groups based on interests and hobbies, and then online orientation. We've shifted away from the traditional on-campus to an online model. One, because, again, PAs are killing it with Red Riot, so we're seeing a lot of duplicative efforts. But more importantly, the cost. This is a cost-adverse generation, and they're spending a lot of costs coming, driving on a Monday, spending in the hotel, staying all day Tuesday, hotel, and then Wednesday, so 3 days of off work and traveling. Then instead of that, we're offering a unique personalized visit. So students fill out a sheet that's on the website, personalized campus visits, where they get to select what it is that they want from their personalized orientation here on campus. It tallies up the time that it's going to take, and then says, based on what you've selected, plan on a 5.5-hour orientation on campus. The ACEs then work as a concierge to get all of that arranged to ensure that each student has that very unique personalized visit.
And then towards the start of the school year, we will welcome on campus to what we call Thunder U. Some of you might have heard of Flight School, Thunder Academy. We've rebranded a couple times, but we realized that it wasn't serving the full purpose that we wanted. So we changed it up, shrunk it down from 5 days to 3 days, created a lot more options, and made it a little bit more fun. So one of the biggest feedback that we got in some of our surveys and stuff from the previous Thunder U's and Thunder Academies is that it seemed very long and boring and not relevant. And we needed to find a way that we could provide those trainings that are so important, like Title IX, without making it seem like such a bother or hassle be here. So we decided to feed them broccoli that tastes like ice cream. So we created a lot of more fun events and then coped those trainings in to make it. And then we shifted from a big, massive group, pushing them to small individual teams of about 10 students with an upperclassman captain to lead them around through the whole time.
Awesome. And then kind of to wrap it all up, for fall and spring, we noticed that these students were just kind of sent off their ways, and it's our goal as ACES, as the FYE office, to help guide them and mentor them through many initiatives through their first year.
So after this year-long experiment, what did we see? We saw retention increase, so not only stopped, but increased by 4% to a historic institutional high. We saw graduation rates increase by 5%. And all across the board, we saw the amount of visits that our academic advisors, counselors, financial aid were seeing go through the roof. We currently have a third highest retention rate and graduation rate in the state behind the University of Utah and Utah State. So what this tells us is we're heading in the right direction. We still got a lot of kinks to work out, but by shifting the focus and focusing in on the one, we're seeing huge dividends for the institution. Thank you so much. And I guess we have a couple of minutes, maybe 2 minutes for questions. So if there's any questions. Yeah, Delaney.
If you're a 34-year-old mom coming back to school, you have to do this?
Yeah. Good question. So what we've done is we've customized a non-trad track, a veteran track, and other unique tracks as part of the orientation. So you're not necessarily doing the Thunder train, right? You're learning more what's relevant to you as a 34-year-old mother that will help you succeed at SUU. So you'll have a different personalized orientation. Great question. Yep.
So overall, you said you saw increases in retention and all the things you were looking at, but have you had any feedback specifically from students about the hand registration? Do they like that, or do some of them not? They still want to register themselves.
Yeah,
but they can't?
Great question. Initially, we'll get a little bit of resistance. We're in a very religious culture, so the one they love using is, you're taking away my agency, We're like, no, you still have your agency. Once they explain, one of the things we looked at when we dove into the data is the average SUU students graduating with 146 credits. You only need 120 to graduate. So they're graduating with 26 more credits than they need. So by us hand registering them, we're starting them off on the right foot, making sure they're taking the math classes they need, they're not taking duplicative classes, and we're getting them out of here earlier. So once we explain that to them, that look, you'll have the option to change or modify your class schedule and work with you, but really this is in your best interest. The cool thing about it is last year, after we registered 1,500 students by hand and opened it up saying you can go in and modify your schedule, we had 5 students, 5, and that's it, go in and actually modify their schedule. So a little bit up front, but once they understand it, they're like, cool, that saves me a lot of headache and heartache. Any other questions? Okay, thank you all so much.